Hello, everyone. Welcome to ACED-I's Partner Connection Days. This is formerly known as Corporate Demo Days. The name was changed this past year to better describe the experience we want everyone to have, which is interactive, connecting, partnering, and more. And since not all of our corporate members have a traditional product or service to demonstrate, we're opening the doors wider for creative and informal sessions our members can take part in. We've split the demonstration over 2 days. Today we will hear from Mazevo, Intern Housing Hub in Kinetic. Tomorrow's schedule includes Concept 3D, Star Res, and Sodexo Campus Conference Services. A very special thank you to our presenters. Your support and commitment allows us to provide this educational program. With that, today's program kicks off with Mazevo. When asked about an interesting tidbit, we found out that Mazevo is a team of just 8 people, but they power event operations at over 100 campuses. That's pretty impressive. Coming from a small staff, I know the feeling. So that's fantastic.
Yes.
Bryan Peck is here and we'll talk about the future of campus event management, building resilient conference and events operations. Welcome, Bryan. Tell us a little bit about yourself before you dive in, and then we'll get started.
Sure. Thanks, Amy. Well, yeah, my name's Bryan Peck. I'm actually the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Mazevo, which I've been doing for about the last 6 years. That's actually when Mazevo started, was in 2019, so we're a relatively young company. But I've been in this industry for quite a while now, for about 25 years, so seen a lot of changes. And yeah, I'm excited to share my presentation today with you all and just kind of talk about some of the trends in higher education events and things like that. But yeah, I'm based here in Colorado, where it is a cool, kind of cold, rainy, gray day today. Kind of feels like fall, so I'm all excited about that. We were talking about that earlier. So yeah, so glad to be here, and thank you, Amy. Thank you, ACED-I, for hosting this. This is a great experience.
If you're ready, feel free to get started on your presentation.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's jump into it then. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today, essentially, I've got a few slides that I'm going to share with you all, and then we'll open it up. And I have a few questions and things like that. We'll try to start some discussion based on that. So anyways, welcome. So I am going to go ahead here and let me just bring those up for you. Okay. All right. Just move some things around. Make sure we can see all this. Okay. So yeah, the title is Reimagining Campus Event Operations. So I thought this was a timely thing to kind of talk about right now because things are changing so fast in higher ed and in the world in general. So anyways, this is what we're going to talk about today. I've already introduced myself a little bit here. There's my contact information. Not going to go into that too much. So yeah, so let's just go ahead and jump in here. So campus events are at a crossroads. So as I mentioned in my introduction, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen things kind of evolve over the years with the way events are managed in college campus environment there. And what I can tell you right now, and none of this is going to be a surprise to anybody probably on this call, but if you just kind of think about these things in the totality, change is the only constant, right? And that's what's going on. So things like campus safety expectations have never been higher, right? I mean, that's just the world we live in now. You also have staff turnover and burnout are starting to impact operations. Now, that's not necessarily a new thing for, especially in a higher education environment. Staff turnover is always there, but especially with like professional staff and things like that, that can really impact things there. You've got student expectations changing, right? Their expectations around digital convenience and everything should be accessible from my phone and that kind of thing. That's continuing to evolve. Budgets are definitely uncertain in this environment. Leadership demands greater visibility and accountability into events and what's going on campus. That's definitely changed a lot and continues to there. And then campuses are nowadays increasingly a flashpoint for activism, unrest. So there's a lot of, I guess, institutional risk that goes along with having events these days, and how all that's managed. So a lot of things happening out there. All of these are kind of um, coming to a head, if you will. And with that, resilient systems are going to thrive even in this environment. Whereas if things are kind of fragile with your processes and the way you deal with things there, you're going to notice in this kind of environment, and that's what we're seeing anyways. So things that we notice when there's kind of this added stress added to the mix of campus events and things. Things that start happening are, approval steps get dropped or missed. So this oversight that needs to happen when there's an event on campus, and who needs to approve it, who needs to see and weigh in and say yes or no to it, that might get dropped or skipped. There's sometimes limited visibility into events. So, you're kind of working off of memory, email inboxes, things like that. Other things that happen are, when staff leaves, some of that critical knowledge walks out the door, and then it's like, now what do we do, right? So we see that happening with some fragile systems out there. Um, Sometimes people struggle to justify their operations with data. So when leadership's like, "Hey, why are we doing this way?" Or, "Why is it we need to keep your budget where it's at or add to it?" Things like that. Sometimes that can be hard to justify those things without the proper data. And then finally, you can be caught off guard or unprepared when there are these kinds of controversial or things that are causing unrest on campus happening. And, it's like, what do you do in that case? Uh, so those are the dangers, right? That's what can definitely happen if you don't have a good process or plan to kind of manage things on a consistent basis. So if you do have the right system, though, then the future can definitely be much more calm, clear, and coordinated, like I said on the slide here. So in that kind of world or scenario, your events are going to be properly reviewed and staffed and executed so everybody knows what's going on, right? And your staff is going to feel supported, and they're going to be calmer, and they're going to be more informed about what's going on. Your student groups are going to respond positively to that kind of environment because, they're getting their needs for meetings and events served fast and intuitively and things like that. So that's helping. Your leadership is going to have real-time data and full confidence in your operations because you've got a handle on things. Everything's managed and tracked and taken care of. Um, and then finally, you'll be even equipped in the events office to coordinate those high risk events so that, they're done safely and everybody knows what's going on. However, if you have some legacy tools in place, things that are kind of held together by duct tape, so to speak, you're going to have trouble getting to that kind of place where you want to be with your events, right? And so I love this image up there because it just kind of reminds me of the 90s and everything. And so just kind of that old school software, right? And so if that reminds you of kind of how you're dealing with things today, it's definitely something to think about. So, one of the things that we notice is that if you have a legacy scheduling system or an event management system, those things are typically this day and age, they're harder to train on and hard to support because your people coming into these roles aren't used to dealing with, software like that. People are used to dealing with something more modern. So it can just take people longer to get up to speed. And then also, usually when you have a system like this, you're also relying on paper or other types of systems to kind of, make sure everything gets done in the way that it should be. And so as soon as there's any kind of pressure put on the system, whether it's, staffing issues or just, a high volume of events or just more oversight, whatever it is, those systems start to kind of break down. It's harder to maintain them because, information's kind of all over the place. And so that's going to lead to missed details, increase risk with your events, things like that. So, so that was really the whole idea behind Mazevo when we started this company about 6 years ago, is that we wanted to enable campus events operations to have everything that they need in one place and make that accessible anywhere. So you don't have to just be chained to your desk all day long so that you know everything happening. You can access stuff from your phone or when you're away from the office, whatever it is, so you can get to the information. So that's a big thing. And you want a central place that can handle all of the event details. You don't want things, scattered in different systems, paper, things like that. Also, communication's a big deal as well. And you already know this, right? It's how do you keep everybody on the same page with your events? And that should be baked into whatever system you have as well. And then also that audit trail that goes along with the events that you're planning. So when things change, which they always are with the events, you can keep track of, okay, who made that change? When was it made? And you just have a full picture of everything that way. Um, there should also be a security layer in here so that you can stay in control of the events. You don't have people just, making changes or slipping things in there when you're not aware of it, right? So it's just the right people have access to get to the information. And then you want the real time, reporting and access so that, everybody can stay aware of what's happening that way. So I want to talk about a couple of the key things that we see that, if you're going to have a good process in place for managing your events so that you can handle all of these things going on, one of the biggest things is the approval process, right? And that's kind of what I'm showing here on this screen is that, you know, each event that you have, if it's a small meeting, it might just be one person looking at it saying, yes, we can do this, space is available, go for it. But if it's something bigger, right, maybe the AV team needs to weigh in, or maybe campus safety needs to, weigh in on something if it's a larger event, or parking, or there's all kinds of other stakeholders typically on campus that might need to be aware at least, or say, yes, we can do this, no, we can't. And so having a built-in process to manage that, so it's not just emails flying around and trying to, say, hey, did they get back to me on all of this? That's a big piece. And so that's kind of baked into Mazevo so that it's just part of the event itself. And that's kind of what these screens are showing right here. So you have a single dashboard. You can kind of see everything that's been requested and where it is in the process. Another thing to think about is that when there is turnover, which is always going to happen, you can't avoid it. It shouldn't break the system, right, with all that knowledge walking out the door. So where we see that a lot, I've already alluded to it. It's like, how do you get staff up to speed on a new system, things like that. That's something we deal with all the time, especially when we're onboarding a new Mazevo customer. It's like, how do we get them up to speed quickly? Because that's probably one of the biggest reasons that holds people back from switching is they perceive the whole switching process as being this huge, large undertaking that takes forever to do, and it's hard and it's painful. And we just think it shouldn't be that way. So I wanted to include a quote up here from Lisa that just talks about her experience. As Amy said, if you were here for the introduction of today's presentation, Mazevo, we're a very small company. We are only 8 employees. So we kind of think of ourselves as kind of that boutique experience. We offer a very individualized process for folks when they come on board, kind of just this, white glove approach where we're just going to work with you to ensure that everything is successful and goes the way you want. And so this quote from Lisa here kind of explains that and kind of, what her experience was. But that goes with the onboarding, but also after you're a customer, right? It's like staff's going to change. How do we make sure they get up to speed and they know what's going on, that kind of thing. So very important part of the process, and having a system that supports that's easy to learn is important. All right. The other big thing, and this is a trend we're seeing as well, is just being able to access information from anywhere, right? Not being chained to your desk. How do you get to the information? So you can pull up Mazevo on a phone and you can get to it. And specifically, we've designed some features for your operations staff. This would be for your staff that's doing room setups, delivering equipment, maybe catering, facilities, things like that. Anybody that needs to know, what do I need to do today for the events, and where are things happening, what's going on, you can get to all of that on your phone. And because it's electronic rather than a piece of paper, folks can check off when they've completed certain tasks or certain setups. And so you, as the event manager, would have access to that and can see, okay, this event, they're working on it right now. This other event's already complete. It's set up. So you have that real-time access, which is really handy, and you're not operating in a vacuum that way. The other big piece, and this is actually an area where I think a lot of campuses have a big opportunity as far as just efficiency and time savings, things like that. So with the request process, typically, in order for somebody to have their event, there needs to be a request that goes in, and then it goes through a process somehow. Mazevo has a built-in request form that you can use for that. And most scheduling systems these days are going to have that, right? So it's important because that saves you a ton of time. Let people put in and tell you exactly what they need, have it go into your system, and then you can review things and see what's going on. Well, that's ideal, right? But if you don't have a simple request form for people that they can easily understand it, they can put the information in there easily, they're going to request using it, right? And so it's important to keep it simple so that you just cut down on the resistance and let them go in there and do it, because then it's just better for everybody. So simple request forms important. The ability for people to see availability before they put their request in. It's like, don't request the space if it's not even available, right? So let them see that up front and then put the request in. That just cuts down on all that back and forth, the email that way. Being able to gather all the details that you need. So the request form needs to be complete, right? You need to be able to ask all the questions up front that you need that way and gather that information. And then you also need to have the request process or form enforce your policies. So that should be part of it as well. Like an example of that might be, maybe you have a policy that says, hey, we need 14 days notice if you're going to use our, one of our large event spaces or something like that. So if that's the case, don't allow them to request that space if it's less than 14 days, in advance. So you can enforce those kinds of policies that way. And so if you're able to do those things, the idea is you're going to cut down on all that email back and forth and those things that take up a lot of time, right? So anyways, so that's another key feature of just being a more resilient events department that way. So I guess the point today is just, change is inevitable. Change is the only constant. So you want to make sure you're leading the change and not trying to play catch up and just, having issues that way. So I hope this resonated with some folks, and I would like at this point to kind of open it up. If you do have any questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat. You can also unmute yourself. But I do want to, here, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute, get back to my controls here. I did have some questions for you all up here as well. So one of the thing, and if you wouldn't mind, you can unmute yourself to answer this, put it in the text chat. That's fine too. But as I was putting this together, I was kind of curious on, how did these things resonate with you? Did I hit the highlights there, or would there be something else that you would add to the list of challenges that I kind of went through up here today? So, what's your biggest scheduling or events management challenge currently? Does anybody want to share that?
I don't mind sharing. I'm Frances. I'm with App State University in North Carolina.
Okay.
Um, Thanks for giving this presentation today, Brian. I've been really curious about this product. I would say for us, we've got the challenge of having a couple of different offices on our campus that are managing events right now. So we are looking for ways to collaborate more,
Yeah.
and also looking for a system that all offices can benefit from. We've got some older systems that are being phased out. We have a lot of different needs. And so for us, it's really about making sure it seems like we just have a push right now to find a better product that might be more robust, that everyone in those areas of events can use, which is just kind of a new trajectory for us. It's just kind of a
Yeah.
new path. We've kind of been allowed to manage these things in our own systems. And like you said, there are definitely touch points that are being missed. There are some gaps in all of those processes that have been identified. And I think for us, it's more about collaborating and centralizing, and making sure that everybody is on the same page.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
It's always the challenge, keeping everybody on the same page that way. So yeah, you're speaking well to the idea of like, it sounds like things are kind of decentralized
Hmm.
currently. Each office kind of is doing their own thing, and that may continue, right? A lot of campuses, that's just the way they operate. It's very difficult in some cases to get everybody on one system or have everything going through a single office on campus when it comes to events. So
Yeah,
it's like, how do you manage that? And that's a big thing we see as well is like the whole centralized versus decentralized thing and stuff like that. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'm curious, how does Mazevo do talking to other programs? Um, for instance, our campus uses 25 Live for actual space scheduling and space management. So I'm curious, how does Mazevo manage that?
Yeah, yeah. We kind of lump that under the umbrella of integrations, which is always
Hmm.
a hot topic, right? And so with Mazevo, we try to make it as easy as possible to integrate with these other systems. So you mentioned 25 Live. That's
Hmm.
typically used by like the registrar's office to do all the classrooms and things like that. So we do have a integration with your student information system, which is also what 25 Live integrates with
Yes.
that
Yeah.
way, right? So the student information system with Mazevo, you're able to pull all the classes from that system and get them into Mazevo. And we have a few different ways to do it. Some are more automated than others. So it's literally, can kind of just happen, or you can upload a file. But either way, we have ways to pull in classes. The other uh, integrations that come up quite a bit are with digital signage and digital displays. You want to show, what's
Yeah.
going on outside the room in certain areas. So we tie in with those systems. Door locking is another one where it can automatically lock and unlock doors depending on what's going on. That's another one. And we've even got some folks who integrate Mazevo with payment processing systems. So when you send an invoice out of the system that says, hey, here's your charges for the event, there can be a link on there where the customer can go online and pay with a credit card and have all that get tracked and everything. So we have a few campuses doing that as well.
Okay, great. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, Francis, for that feedback. Does anybody else want to share kind of what their challenges are or anything similar to what Francis mentioned?
Hey Brian, I'll go.
Okay.
Kelly Mason with CU and Shoots out in Aurora, Colorado. Um,
Okay, Kelly.
Something that we often find ourselves struggling with is service orders for all of the service providers to know what needs to be done with a room. So let's say a customer indicates, oh, we will have food at this event, or they request a room that is divisible and it's only a portion of the room that needs to be set up. So therefore, the setup crew needs to put the divider wall in place. And we're finding, customers aren't adding those services, and so we're looking at, how can this be automated in some way where
Yeah.
it automatically triggers that service order. So we're not putting more work on the customer, but we're also not putting more work on the service provider
Yeah.
themselves to have to go into every event and add this item, so that way they remember in 2 months that they need to be scheduling the crew to go clean the room or put a divider wall in place. That sort of thing has been a bigger struggle for us as of late.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a big one. You're not alone there. We've heard that challenge many times as well. And I mean, this touches on a few things. One is there's the customer education aspect of this, right? Where it's like the folks who are holding these events, putting on the event, sometimes they're not always thinking in the way that an event planner would think, which is like, oh, I need to make sure I tell them that, I'm only using part of the room and or that, I'm going to need this equipment in there, we're going to serve food, things like that. That's just not the way they're thinking of it. And so there is an education part of this which never stops, right? It's just how do you educate folks so that they know that. But you can do certain things in your system to kind of help with that process, right? So, for instance, like asking them up front, hey, are you planning on having food and things like that? And the other thing that goes into this is sometimes they're not going to know right away. They just need to know, can I get the space for my event? And then I'm going to come back later and add those other things. So sometimes they don't have all the information you want up front, but at least asking for that up front is the first step. But then also having a way to maybe ask them again down as the event gets closer. One thing I see Mazevo customers do with that is you can have the system automatically send emails out to folks as their event gets closer. So maybe like a month out or a few weeks out or whatever, it sends an email that says, hey, we're ready for your event. Here's all the details. Let us know now if anything, you need anything else or something like that. So having that automated can definitely help you like just stay on top of things, right? So we see that as well. So
Totally.
yeah,
That's exactly right. I think you nailed it. The customer education piece is what we run into a lot, because it's like,
yeah,
this admin in the cancer center has all of a sudden been asked to coordinate this day-long symposia, and they have no idea, right? So how can we coach them, but
yeah,
also have a system that sets them up for success from the get-go?
yeah, yeah. That's it. That's it. So yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. And I know we're coming up on our time here, and yeah, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but I am going to put into the chat right now. You may have seen this. We just ACED-I just sent out a mailer for us to all of you. I think you all probably saw it, but I'm going to put this in the chat. We are sharing our higher education event planning checklist with everybody. So you may have already downloaded this. I think this went out last week or something like that. But if you didn't, I'm going to put it in the chat right now so that you get a copy if you want it. And it's just a spreadsheet. It's totally editable. Use it as you will. We designed it so that if you want to share something with your customers of like, hey, you're planning a big event. Here's all the things you need to think about. It just gives you kind of a template or a place to start to use that. And because it's editable, you can add some of your own stuff or change it, whatever. But if you find that useful, I am going to put it into the chat right now. I'm pulling it up here, so just bear with me as I pull this in. Your downloads, there we go. There we go. Okay, it is coming your way. So it should pop up in the little chat on Zoom right there. But it's just a spreadsheet. Feel free to download that if you find that useful. And I just want to thank everybody for showing up today and for the presentation. If this is something you want to delve into further, please do reach out to me. All my contact information's on the information here. We would love to show you Mazevo or just have a chat about your process, whatever would work there. So again, thanks everybody for your time.
Thank you, Bryan. That was fantastic information. We appreciate you joining us for the first session this year. And if anybody has any questions, like you said, please feel free to reach out to him. And if you need any help finding his information, reach out to me and I'll be happy to connect you. Next up, we have Intern Housing Hub. Starts at 12 p.m. Mountain Time. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.